Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deconstructing Politics. My name is Elijah Kinnear.
And I'm Tommy Mulcairns.
Oh my gosh, we're back at it again. You know, Tommy and Eli, the classic duo.
Been a while since it's been me and you.
Yeah.
We've both been out of town. It's been a busy couple weeks here.
Busy time. But what's the first up on our little news docket? There's been a lot happening.
Yeah, so first thing we're talking about, this episode is going to be about the debate. So first thing we're talking about is why this debate was high stakes. So coming into the debate, I think when Kamala announced her candidacy, and when she was picking Tim Walz going into the convention, there was all the support for her. People were super excited about her campaign. People didn't really know what she stood for. And then after the convention, her support started to wane a bit, right? So this poll comes out in the New York Times where she, for the first time in a month, is losing to Donald Trump. And that brought up all these questions of, is her support waning? Is she hitting this lull period? And I think it's because she had just general excitement about it not being an 80-year-old man for the Democratic nominee. And then she got to a phase after that excitement had worn off where it's like, okay, now define yourself. What do you stand for? You know?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, so because of Joe Biden dropping out, everyone knew Joe Biden. You know, we had a great long time to get to know the man as a candidate. Long time.
50 plus years.
Dude's been in politics forever. Everyone knows him. But Kamala Harris is kind of like a more... Kamala. We're back at it again. Kamala Harris. That... You know, like people don't really know where she stands. People don't really know her. She also has stepped back a lot of her positions as like this progressive senator that she was running on in 2020. So we still need to get that definition. And honestly, from my point of view, I still don't really got it. She's very for abortion. She's very for a lot of these things that we know Democrats are. But it is just kind of like standard Dem policy. There's nothing that really shouts like Kamala to me.
Kamala. Yeah. Like, who is she? That is the question. And I think you're absolutely right about in 2020 she positioned herself as this progressive. And I would say even when she took over for Biden, she was seen very much as this progressive because I think all we had to go off of was her record when she ran in 2020. She very, very quickly started to move away from that after picking Tim Walz, right? Like, Tim Walz was the progressive pick. I think a lot of progressives were really happy, and I think a lot of people thought that this was a sign that Kamala was going to move in a more left-wing direction. So she picks Tim Walz. People think she's moving this leftward direction, and that's where I think a lot of this excitement came from. Like, that's where I think you had the like Brat Summer TikTok things that were associated with her. Like, this really grassroots, genuine energy and excitement for her. And then she starts talking about Israel-Palestine. She starts talking a little bit more about her more right-wing takes. She moves towards the center, and all of a sudden her support starts to die off. And I think that it coincided with this period of the convention had just ended, and she had not really defined herself. Because her biggest issue is that people don't know who she is. People, I think in that poll, a majority of voters were like, we don't know who Kamala is, and we don't feel comfortable supporting her until we do. But I think a big part of that, too, was that she had moved away from her progressive positions. And again, especially on Israel-Palestine, right? Like, if you want to win Michigan, I think that you have to support Palestine. And Kamala has done nothing but come out as Israel's biggest defender, just like Joe Biden. And that was really sad to see. I think that had a lot to do with the ebb in excitement that she saw.
Yeah, I mean, the Dems are handed the perfect opportunity to redefine themselves and especially really hit back and kind of start to win those like progressive and youth voters that they were losing by like the thousands during the undecided campaign. And instead of doing that, they think the safe option is to go to the moderate side and try to court moderate and even like some center-right voters. I mean, Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris. Are you kidding me? I mean, this guy was seen as the devil back in the early 2000s during the Bush administration. Basically the boogeyman for Democrats and anyone left-wing. And now all of a sudden, oh my God, Dick Cheney, he's so great. He endorsed Kamala Harris. Like, are you kidding me? This war criminal, like professional war criminal, shot a dude in the face. Like, what?
Yeah, I can't think of a worse coalition to build than with Dick Cheney. You know, it's like you're going to abandon your left flank for Dick Cheney. You're absolutely right. I mean, Dick Cheney is a war criminal. Dick Cheney is one of the worst people to ever have occupied an office of power within at least the last like half century. You know, just like pure evil incarnate. And for some reason, Kamala's going out there touting his support, and I understand it, right? Like, I understand that she is trying to appeal to this mythical median voter in the swing states, in the Midwest, in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. But the thing is that when the uncommitted campaign was happening, right? The Biden got absolutely at least in Wisconsin, he lost by the same. The amount of uncommitted votes that there were the same margin that Biden beat Donald Trump by in Wisconsin. So in other words, the voters that Biden needed to win are all saying we care about Israel Palestine. You go to Michigan with Dearborn, which is a huge Muslim population, right, and is very pro Palestine. Very pro Palestine. And then she's turning around and being like, no, the way to court these voters is to move towards the center. I don't understand that at all.
I guess in their heads, if we could just appeal to the centrist or like median voter, then we don't have to care about the progressives. If we just pick up a bunch of these median voters, like really, was it gonna matter? Like we can try to make up for that, but like, is this mythical median voter? Are there really even enough of them to do that? Like I don't know. Especially with how polarized our politics is at this point, you will be hard set to find the mythical like Mitt Romney, Clinton voter, the person that like suddenly in 2016 became a Democrat. Either they're already going to be voting Democrat because they hate Donald Trump, or they just don't exist. I refuse to believe they exist. And by shaming the left wing, I mean, you had this chance. All you had to do is endorse a ceasefire or an arms embargo. So things that are popular in America, things that people want to see. They want to see an end to the supporting Israel and its genocide, and instead just turned around and like, we're going to support them, we're going to keep doing what they're doing. They've also been shifting rightwards on immigration and really touting what was basically flooding the border with like federal troops and all that was their plan, bipartisan, as like, oh, this is really good, we should do this, but Donald Trump stopping it. It's like, no, what?
Yeah, well, I mean, rather than running this rather than presenting their own left-wing vision rather than doing like New Deal politics, right? I mean, this was like FDR was able to win and get a hammerlock on the country for so long because his policy positions were very popular, right? People, it turns out, actually really like progressive and what I would say socialist policies, and instead of moving towards that, Democrats, out of fear of this median voter, have moved more right-wing. And then like you see this trend towards right-wing policy positions on like immigration, like you just brought up. And what ends up happening is that they don't get any more popular when they move right. They're still seen as doing bad on doing bad on the issue, right? Like immigration is a weak point for Kamala and Biden, yet they moved right wing. So it's like all you're doing is capitulating to the right wing, moving towards these what are basically fascist policies, and then turning around and being like, well, this is going to help us win, and no one's impressed. No one's happy about it. But when you do progressive left-wing things, like you choose Tim Walz over Josh Shapiro, people are really excited, and you get this like wave of excitement. And then when that dies down because you're moving more towards the middle, you're like, well, I don't know what the problem is. I don't know where the Democratic Party's head is at.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And also, like, with Tim Walz, everyone kind of knows who Tim Walz is. This is kind of like the whole, like, knowing the candidate thing. I would almost say there's a reason why the Harris campaign is touting Walz so hard. Because people like him. Like, people like Walz. He comes from, like, a very progressive policy in Minnesota, other than, tear gas Tim. For the most part, passed a lot of legislation that you would consider, like, New Deal politics. And also just has this folksy kind of, like, Midwestern grandpa vibe that people immediately know who he is because he reminds them of someone they're related to, someone they know. Like, oh, this is a guy I go to a potluck with. Like, I know exactly who Tim Walz is. I don't know who Kamala Harris is, other than a Democratic Kamala. I don't even know her name. I don't know who Kamala Harris is. She's just some Dem senator that became a vice president and now is running for president, and like apparently ran on progressive strategy before. It was a DA. Like, you get like stuff, but who is Kamala as a person? Don't know.
Kamala.
I'm never gonna get it right.
I want to keep correcting you until we get there. No, but you're absolutely right. Like, and that's actually a really good point. If you combined the Tim Walz like familiarity with Midwestern values and like comes off as just the most Midwestern dude you've ever seen, with populist left-wing economic policies, that's a recipe for like a 48 state sweep. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim Walz could be FDR if he wanted to. Guys, let's do another ticket change real quick. Let's have Walz top it.
Anyways, well, we bring all this up because the stakes, like Kamala, I'm doing you.
I'm getting to it.
Yeah, you are. Kamala enters into this debate losing to Donald Trump in the polls, losing this huge wave of enthusiasm that had kind of marked her campaign for the first month that it was around, is starting to ebb, and she's in a position where she has to really define herself. So going into this debate, the stakes were pretty high, right? And this debate actually had more viewers than the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, which forced Joe Biden out of the race. So Kamala's going in with this goal to get under Trump's skin and throw him off. She wants to make him seem crazy, which worked out pretty well for her.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, and Trump's goal is going in. Trump wants to define Kamala, right? He wants to be the one to say, essentially, this is who she is, and this is why this is why she's a crazy left winger. So he's going in trying to tie Kamala to Biden and associate her with issues like inflation and the border, which are massively unpopular. And for the people who watch the debate, I think you can tell Kamala got what she wanted. Trump did not at all.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, she got under his skin pretty easily. At the start there, it was like kind of a normal debate. He was fine, but I knew immediately when she started talking about his rally numbers. Mm-hmm. I mean, Trump's an entertainer. He's always been an entertainer. He's a guy that loves entertaining. He did The Apprentice. He did all these shows. You know, he loves being entertaining. That's what he's good at. And that is admittedly what he's good at. He's funny. He does all this stuff. And the best way to do that is call him boring. The best way to say that is like nobody wants to see you or like go to your stuff. And you could see immediately where he gets angry. And the first thing he does is fall for the bait. He immediately is like, my rallies are the greatest ever. We have so many people. She has nobody. She has to bust them and pay them. And just goes on this rambling rant. And he just unravels for the entire debate. It was insane. And you could see, it's like Kamala Harris like starts smiling. Kamala Harris starts smiling like a Tom and Jerry cartoon where like Tom like gets Jerry in a trap. Like it was hilarious. It was like cartoonish how well it worked. And then just gets into a rant about eating dogs, eating the dogs, eating pets.
He had some banger lines. He sounded absolutely insane. It was awesome. It was so funny. He comes out, it's like they're eating dogs and cats. It's just like what is happening right now? I love it. Please keep it up.
I think that was the first time I've ever genuinely like belly laughed at like a debate or in a while, like at something I've seen on TV. I was losing it. It was so funny. It was perfect comedian time there. You just breathes in. They're eating the dogs. It's just so good. It was so funny, and it worked, and he unraveled, and that's kind of what she needed. But
I mean, she played it brilliantly, right? Because the question I think that was on was immigration, which is Donald Trump's strong suit, and Kamala's like that is her weak point. And rather than Donald Trump going in on her about her being the border czar or whatever the Republican framing is on that, Kamala was able to completely knock him off. And you're right. Like he came out and just sounded insane. He started ranting about his rally sizes, and his aides had told him for weeks and weeks beforehand, they're like, you need to just stay on message. Just don't go off on these rants. Don't get too out of it. Like just stay on message, stay calm, come off as reasonable and normal. As soon as she was like, yeah, no one wants to sit at his rallies. He's boring. He's lame. No one likes him. He lost his mind, and it was such a brilliant play. And she kept like bringing in these little jabs. Anytime a question would have been bad for Kamala, what she did was she would like make these little jabs at Trump, where she knew exactly what to say to get under his skin, and it completely threw him off. It was a really good debate on Kamala's part.
I will say, yeah, and I think like as people that have been like watching debates, or at least have like watched debates since like 2016, have like watched all this stuff. That was always Trump's thing. His thing was you could not really debate him because he'd always try to get under your skin. What made Biden good is he was just like did not care.
Well, he was too old to know what was happening.
Yeah,
that was why Biden was the perfect antithesis to Trump, because he just didn't understand what was going on.
Dude didn't know where he was. You can't make him annoying, but that's how Trump won the Republican primary in the first place, was like constantly getting under everyone's skins and making them mad and making them like off their game. And Kamala out-Trumped Trump by just making him lose his ground and just like constantly picking at him and making him lose his mind. So it was an amazing performance.
He also said the thing about they're doing transgender surgeries on illegal aliens in prison, which just sounds like such an insane thing to say. It's not true, by the way, but I mean that's what was awesome about it, is that it's completely made up, but he just strung together buzzwords and made this insanely awesome and very funny sentence that no one believes, right? And I think again he came off as absolutely insane. What's interesting is that Trump, when you poll voters, Trump tends to be seen as a moderate, which Trump is like, just to be clear, a fascist. I mean,
As
close to a fascist as you're right. Like he is, he likes authoritarians. He has talked about being a dictator on day one. He is a fascist. But for some reason, he comes off, well, not just for some reason, because he does this thing where he will push for populist policies that both the right and left push for, and then he will take positions that are usually supposed to be on the left, right? Like he's like, they're all war criminals, they're all like warmongers, and will take popular left-wing positions and use that to make himself seem a centrist. And it works really well. So for Kamala to be able to come out and make him seem like this insane right-wing person is exactly what she needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on forever about just all the crazy stuff he said, but like some really great examples is like when on the topic of abortion, he was saying, "Oh, they're aborting." Like, he went through all the terms, and then he was like, "After birth," like
post-birth abortions. That's crazy.
He was like, "They're doing post-birth abortions," and a moderator actually had to fact check him because. Newsflash, I don't think anywhere in America they're like aborting living babies. I don't think that's happening at all.
It's not. That is literally murder.
That is literally illegal.
Like to say abortion is murder, and that's like a contested topic. Straight up, killing a baby is murder. Like under every definition of the law.
Straight up. And then like going on rants about her father's a Marxist professor, which is true, but then being like, shout out Kamala's dad, but then being like, Kamala's dad, but then being like, oh, she is also a Marxist, and then she hates Israel, and it's just like, man, I love this Kamala. Can I vote for her real quick?
Wait, you love this Kamala?
Kamala. I love the Kamala he was talking about seems awesome. Wants transition surgery for illegal aliens, like illegal immigrants. She wants like Marxism, and she hates Israel. Can I vote for her now?
I know. Where is she? Like, I would love to see it. Sadly, the truth is, and this was the disappointing part of the debate, at least for us, was that she took a very strong pro-Israel stance and was like, Israel has a right to defend itself. And I just think the framing of Israel has the right to defend itself when we are almost a year into this genocide now. And it is a genocide. Like, it's been called a genocide with basically every major international governing body. It is undeniably a genocide, and turn around and be like, well, Israel is defending itself. By committing genocide? No, Israel is the one being aggressive. Israel is the attacker here. And I don't think that that's going to play well. I don't think that people, like, I think the majority of Americans do not think that Israel and what Israel is doing is right. I don't even think, actually, I know for a fact because of the massive protest that happened after the hostages were killed, the Israeli hostages were killed, and these massive protests broke out all across Israel because people were saying that Netanyahu is the cause of this, that Netanyahu is going too hard. Netanyahu is not trying to get the hostages out, he's just trying to kill. So for the American position to still be, Israel is just absolutely insane.
I mean, we've talked about this time and time again. I mean, not only is this a genocide, not only that sort of thing, but like everyone, like you see it from pro-Zionists every single day, but Hamas. And as we said multiple times on this show, Hamas happens when you traumatize a nation, a people, for decades upon decades to get insanely radicalized, and unfortunately to a very extreme traditionalist side, but that is out of the trauma that they're experiencing. I mean, you're literally killing fathers, sons, mothers, entire families. What do you expect them to do but then to go for the most radical, go for the most hard-hitting option against Israel? Israel is creating its own mess when it comes to Hamas, and if you actually want to stop it, I don't know, stop doing a genocide. Stop killing Palestinians. Maybe give their land back.
The only difference between a terrorist group and an army, like a nation's army, is that a terrorist group comes from a poor country that doesn't have the ability to produce its own army. That you're absolutely right? Like Hamas is just Hamas is Israel's making. I mean, quite literally, like Netanyahu did fund Hamas over there. There was a left-wing option, a left-wing armed resistance group in Palestine, and Netanyahu knew that he could come to power by making himself seem like the protector of Israel if Hamas was in power, because they were seen as the more radical ones, the more violent ones, the more extreme ones. So he funded them. So Israel quite literally created Hamas. Israel then went on the offensive. Israel's been on the offensive, right? Like when Israel was established in 1948, and even before that with the Balfour Declaration, they were the ones on the offensive. They were the ones coming onto Palestinian land and pushing Palestinians off. The Nakba was a massacre of the Palestinian people. It was brutal. It was an occupation. So yeah, when you live under occupation, of course, you're going to have people who are going to fight back against that occupation. So you can't turn around and be surprised when they fight back against that occupation. The answer then is not to be more brutal. And I think that Americans are waking up to that a little bit more. I don't think the American government is, and I don't know that they ever will.
No, I don't know. I think we're so entrenched in Israel. So many American interests revolve around Israel that like we have tied our hands behind our backs. We have basically the American government at least has tied their hands behind their backs and is saying, well, we have to do this. And I think even if there's like some quiet doubts, even if some of them wanted to, there's too much like military industrial complex interest. There's too many capitalist power interests invested in Israel that unless you really uproot that system, stem and everything, it's going to be a fight. And this was a chance for the Democrats to start doing that, because I honestly like this is their defense of Israel is not helping anyone. It actually hurts them, actively hurts their party. It doesn't help the Democrats to be pro Israel. If they would just stop, I think they would actually gain a lot more. They would actually like kind of win a lot of left-wing support and a lot of people that kind of agree. I mean, there's Democratic Congress people that are signing on to an arms embargo. Do that. Actually enact that. Kamala Harris, when she's in power, Kamala Harris, when she's in power, should enact an arms embargo. That would be a lot, and that would win over a lot of trust, or even just publicly supporting it. But they simply just cannot. Like, it's like an anchor around their neck.
Well, and what's interesting, too, is that the Democratic Party has recognized that popular opinion has moved in the direction of the pro-Palestine movement, and they have taken this position of, well, we want a ceasefire. We want a ceasefire. But like what they say when they mean a ceasefire is that they basically want Hamas to return all of the hostages, give up all of their leverage, and that they just want they want Hamas to capitulate to Israel. The people who are stopping a ceasefire from happening right now, which the American government never mentions, is Israel. And instead of, like, you're absolutely right, an arms embargo would force Israel to the table. They would force them to capitulate. Netanyahu has been intransigent in these debates and negotiations, literally killing the main person who was involved in negotiations. That's Netanyahu killed the political leader of Hamas, who's the one leading the negotiations. Like, they have done everything they can to ensure that these negotiations never come through. And this has been Israel's playbook, right? Like, they're always like, we want a two-state solution. We want a two-state solution. Well, at the same time, making a two-state solution impossible. They are the ones who are stopping any peaceful negotiations. So for us to turn around and be like, well, we Hamas needs to come to the table. Hamas has been at the table, and Palestine has been at the table since 1948. They just want the killing of their people to stop, and it is Israel that is continuing this, because Israel and Zionism does not believe in a two-state solution. What Israel means is a one-state solution, and it's an ethno-nationalist state. It has to be a Jewish majority, and right now, Jews do not make up the majority in that region.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what better way, like, as we were talking about, like, when it comes to, like, radicalizing a population, radicalizing a people to not want to, like, to be more militant, to, like, be more adverse to, like, more peaceful options, try killing the guy that was literally in negotiations with you. What a great message to send. Like, that is going to obviously remove them from the negotiation table. That's like if, like, Russia and Ukraine came to negotiations and Russia just killed Zelensky. Like, okay, cool. You know, Ukraine's not going to come then. I don't think any world power, if any of their leaders were killed in negotiations, they're going to be much more, like, wanting to negotiate. Like, Israel is, like, hurting itself not only, but also America is hurting itself by constantly just not taking a stand. I've quoted him before, and I hate quoting this ghoul, but George H.W. Bush once asked, who's the superpower here when talking about Israel? Like, it rings so true. Who is the superpower? America has everything in its power to stop this, and it does not.
100%. And I think the purpose of killing the main person who's doing the negotiations on the Hamas side was to buy time, right? Because what Israel wants is an ethno-nationalist state where the Palestinians have been completely pushed out and Israel owns the entire land. So they want to continue their genocide. They want to clear Gaza and they want to occupy Gaza. The more people that they kill, the more it's going to be easier to occupy Gaza. So they killed this person so that Hamas would have to scramble and find a new political leader, and they would basically have to restart negotiations so that they could get in there. But all of this is to say, to get back to the debate, all of this is to say that Kamala is still going out there and supporting Israel despite the fact that the rest of the world is turning on them, despite the fact that Israelis are turning on them, continues to support them. And I'm worried that the Palestine issue is going to be Kamala's death knell, because I myself am not going to vote for Kamala if she's going to continue a genocide. And I know many young people who feel the same. I know many Americans in general who feel the exact same way. And I think that taking this position to support American interests in the Middle East is going to kill the campaign. And what's really irritating is when they turn around and say, well, not voting or voting for Jill Stein is a vote for Donald Trump. I don't understand why it is the voters' responsibility to make Kamala win. I think it is the campaign's responsibility to have popular positions that appeal to a broad amount of Americans. That's how politics has always worked, right? Like, it is not my job to think about how to make the Democrats win. That is the Democrats' job. And the Democrats, if they fail at their job, that is on them and no one else. And right now, they're failing at that job.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, take away my communist card. But when they were in that position where everything was fresh, Joe Biden stepped down. Kamala Harris became, the nominee, and Kamala Harris someday, and then they picked Tim Walz, and I was like, okay, I can see a vote for Kamala now. I can definitely see a vote for it, because especially with an opponent who is a fascist, who is going to take away much more minority rights, pack courts, so that even in our lifetime, we'll probably be in our middle ages by the time those judges, and then on the Supreme Court, in our 30s or 40s, when those judges come down.
Unless someone does something really brave.
Yeah, unless someone does. No endorsement there, of course. But like all this is going to happen. Like, a Trump term would be insane. It would make labor organizing hard. It would make everything we do as socialists and progressives on the ground much harder and much more repressive. So I was considering, but with this support for the genocide and doubling down on it, and then especially some of the speakers at the DNC being cops, former Republicans, all this sort of thing, signaling an intent to want to court the median voter, the moderates, maybe even the Mitt Romney Republicans who are dead and gone. Let's just be honest with ourselves. The Mitt Romney Republicans, the good old George W. Bush Republicans are
the
gone.
Rhinos.
Yeah, the rhinos.
That's
they're
what
gone.
the Republicans call them, the rhinos.
Yeah, the rhinos. Yeah.
Republicans in name only.
Yeah, the Republicans, they're gone. They're dead. They no longer exist. They're no longer influential.
In John McCain's case, quite literally.
Yes. Yeah, shout out John McCain. Rest in...
He's not hearing that.
Yeah. The underworld, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But they're gone. So it's up to the Democrats. If they want to keep supporting genocide, I would much rather clean my hands of that than have to vote for a genocide or watch women and children die every day just to keep I don't know. If you want to stop fascism, it's up to the Democrats, essentially.
Yes, absolutely. And to your point, yes, I would much rather not support Kamala than watch. I mean, there was a child recently in Gaza who literally they could not find pieces of his body because he was hit with a missile and his entire body evaporated. This is happening daily in Gaza. They are starving. There's polio breaking out. I mean, they are in one of the worst humanitarian crises at least in modern times. And I'm not going to support that. I cannot bring myself to vote for someone who's going to not just support that, but fund it. I mean, the only reason Israel is able to do what it does is because of American funding. And I'm not going to play a part in that. I refuse.
Yeah. If the Democrats want to earn some votes, come out for an arms embargo. That is the biggest way. If you want a ceasefire, if you want a lasting ceasefire, if you want something that's actually going to cause negotiations and end this genocide now, endorse an arms embargo right now. Sign on to it. There are Democrats signing on to a resolution for an arms embargo. That is a thing happening right now. Good old Nancy Pelosi, who's weirdly been popping off, has signed on to something like that. Like, for the love
Marxist queen Nancy Pelosi Marxist for some reason.
I'm glad she chose the end of her career to do that. Thanks, Nancy. Just do that. If you want to do that, then I would be much more comfortable. I think a lot of people would. The undecided voters would. That would strong a clear message that you want to end this. So... it's in the Democrats' court. The ball has always been in the Democrats' court. Either you wanna beat fascism, or you want to keep crippling yourselves.
And what really bothers me is when people are like, well, you don't care about abortion, you don't care about LGBTQ rights, you don't care about all these things. It's like, of course we do. Of course we do. Yes. Me and Eli both have done so much activism for both feminist causes and for LGBTQ plus causes. We care so much about those people, but we just, at the end of the day, the true threat is to the Gaza people. And if the Democrats we care about it. If the Democrats care about it, then they will stop the threat to the Gaza people.